Okay, we're now live. So over to you, David, for an intro.
Okay, we're ready to go?
Yeah, all good.
Good. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Edgware United's Wednesday Night Live. Tonight, our guest is Marie van der Zijl. She is the President of the Board of Deputies of British Jews. And I'd just like to wish you Mazel Tov on your re-election for a further 3 years.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure, my pleasure. I'm not sure if they're here, but I'd like to wish Mazel Tov to Edgware United's deputies who were elected last month. They are Danny Handler, Keith Myers and Spencer Nathan. Whilst here, I'd also like to thank Norma Frankel for her enormous contribution over many years. Marie has been at the forefront of the community's fight against anti-Semitism, especially in the digital sphere and social media. She represents the UK's Jewish community on a world stage as Vice President of the World Jewish Congress and Chair of the Council of the European Jewish Congress. In her professional life, she is a partner of the law firm INT, specialising in employment law. There's very much more I could say about you, but I will leave that to you to take over from that. The floor is yours, Marie. Welcome.
Thank you. And friends, it really is an honour to be joining you this evening. And without doubt, this year has been a year like no other for the world and for the Jewish community here in the UK. And for me, the Board of Deputies really represents the very best of our community in action. I am very proud, as David said, to have just been re-elected as President of the Board of Deputies of British Jews. I'm the first female president to have been re-elected in the whole of our organisation's time period. That's 260 years. And we have a very rich history and an even richer future. There is a really long list that I could pick from, but if I had to point out just 3 things in the last year or so that really show the difference the Board of Deputy makes, I'm going to say, firstly, the coronavirus bill, working with the government, the opposition and the Muslim community, we created an amendment to allow the religious freedoms of those who died from COVID-19 to be respected. And our advocacy, which really literally was amazing over a weekend, we managed to secure that the clause for forced cremation for any deceased was removed. Secondly, I don't know if you remember, we like to say that we saved Sukkot because our work with the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, we secured the seized etrogim at Manchester Airport were released and their stalks were trimmed to meet government standards before being successfully distributed across the community. Thirdly, we really showed Hanukkah in a new light with our historic event featuring the ambassadors to the UK from Israel, Bahrain, and the UAE. And this was a celebration that would have been unthinkable even a year ago. And it was watched by an amazing 15,000 people. Can I say we really value the representation of Edgware United. We look forward to welcoming your deputies at this triennium. And once again, Mazel Tov to Spencer Nathan, Danny Handler, and Keith Myers on their election. And I'm sure that they will play a key role in the betterment of British Jewry. And Norma has had a very, very long period of service. I want to commend Norma, and also Florette Hyman has done a huge amount of work for the Board of Deputies as well. Now, I know also that there are so many of you working so hard and volunteering your time to support and lead the community through what is really an incredibly turbulent period. And like so many of you, I'm also a communal volunteer, and our community would not be half of what it was without its members giving all of their time and energy. So I want to say a massive thank you to all of you. And I also want to share with you a few of our challenges and how, with the support of all of you who contribute the £30 communal contribution to the Board of Deputies each year, what we do and how important that money is to us to enable us to function. So some of the issues which I would like to address relate to key parts of our work. So social media, it's become undeniable, I'm afraid, that social media is the new frontline and it's the new battleground for hate. In the Community Securities Trust most recent report, online instances of anti-Semitism this year increased by 4%, and this now constitutes 44% of all reports of anti-Semitism, and that is at an all-time high. But online platforms represent a convenient, a far-reaching, anonymizing, and secure environment for those who want to voice and incite their hatred. It was well publicised that the Board of Deputies, we had a direct death bomb threat. We also had threats to shoot out our staff. And when we complained to Facebook, they had a very unsatisfactory response saying that the post did not violate their community standards. And we publicly criticised Facebook's inaction. We've also proposed with the Online Harms Bill, we have lobbied the big social media giants, the Home Office and the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport for three things. For government to adopt a regulator that will use and adopt the IRA definition for anti-Semitism. We've asked the social media teams to appoint a number of staff in the UK to moderate harmful content. And because of our work, our third point has already been adopted by the government, a system of heavy fines for social media companies who fail to comply, because nothing else other than a hefty fine, I think, is going to make them meet their obligations. And I would like everybody to rest assured, we have got the message. We know that online is the new frontline, and we are going to continue to defend and protect our community. This is an ongoing task, and there is no easy resolution, but we will make sure that we stand up and we call out anti-Semitism online. I also would like to talk to you about our Uyghur campaign, because when news emerged of the plight of the Uyghurs, the Muslims in Xinjiang, we really felt compelled as a community to act. And an entire year before their persecution finally started to make headlines, we hosted already an awareness-raising event at Parliament for the Jewish community with the president of the World Uyghur Congress, alongside senior faith leaders, all united in the ever-needing need to address it. I also wrote to the Chinese ambassador a public letter highlighting the notable similarities between what's happening in China today and what happened in Nazi Germany 75 years ago. And the Chinese did reply to that letter, not satisfactorily, to be said. And recently, we hosted a press conference urging MPs to back the genocide amendment. And as British Jews, we believe it's vital for our community to keep its position as a supporter of human rights. And as Jews, we simply cannot let history repeat itself. We do this not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it's the Jewish thing to do. International religious freedoms. Recently in Finland, a bill was proposed to criminalise female genital mutilation. And as a result of this gender-neutral language, religious circumcision was also tied into this. And if that legislation had been passed, it would have meant that this fundamental Jewish tradition would have been outlawed in Western Europe for the first time since the Second World War. And we knew if it could happen over there, it could happen over here. So straight away, we got into action. We got the UK government on board, which meant the full support of the British ambassador on the ground, as well as the Finnish ambassador in London. And circumcision was successfully removed from this draft bill. So whenever and wherever Jewish people are under threat, we will feel it too here. And alongside being president of the Board of Deputies, as David said, I'm also vice president of the World Jewish Congress, and I was elected, despite Brexit, as chair of the Council for the European Jewish Congress. And the responsibility to continue to protect the freedoms of Jews throughout the world is not one that I take lightly. And let me tell you, wherever those threats resurface, we will fight them again. And just this week, we're taking action right now as the animal welfare bill is also being discussed. Israel. We are, of course, deeply, deeply concerned, as we all are, by the recent conflict with the terrorists Hamas and Israel. Most alarming was over 4,000 rockets raining down on the majority of Israel's population in just 2.5 weeks. We, of course, mourn all loss of innocent life. We were deeply alarmed and continue to be alarmed by the blatant anti-Israel bias and hatred shown towards the Jewish state across media outlets and especially on social media. We immediately convened the CEOs of the board, the JLC, CST and UJIA to coordinate the community's response, and we issued statements calling for a return to calm in Jerusalem and absolutely condemning Hamas's relentless and abhorrent rocket fire. And throughout, we maintained contact with the Israeli embassy, the UK government and the Labour Party. We held an emergency meeting with the Shadow Minister for the Middle East, Wayne David, also where I expressed my deep concern at Labour's response. Whilst we've been comforted by the government's hard line on the recent incessant rise of anti-Semitism, we still have to urge the community to remain vigilant, to stay safe and report any instances to CST, who really are working very closely with the Metropolitan Police. We are cautiously optimistic that the ceasefire will continue to hold. But if needed, we know that Israel will always need to defend its citizens, and the Jewish community will always support its right to self-defend. I spoke at the Israel rally a few weeks ago, where I was very proud to do so and to stand with Israel. There really is no facet of Jewish life, region, or denomination where the Board of Deputies does not advocate on the part of the community. And with the ever-growing challenges, we really need a strong voice, a united voice. It's only with your support and with gratitude for the communal contribution that we continue to work to secure the future of our Jewish community. And the strength that I have witnessed in the Jewish community in coping with this ever-changing environment fills me with pride. Thank you to your fantastic chair, David Landau, for his tremendous work. And I very much look forward to strengthening the work between the Board of Deputies and your community and seeing you all in person. We've done so much together. There's still so much more to do. And I look forward to leading our Jewish community forwards. I wish you well. I'm very happy to answer any questions that you might have. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Marie. Very interesting. If anybody wishes to ask any questions, if you would either pose your question in the chat room or if you would show your virtual hand, which if you go to your picture in the right-hand corner at the top, you will see the means to do so. You mentioned about social media, and of course, social media has grown massively, and the ability of fake news, opinion, hatred to be broadcast on social media can be done with simplicity. Anti-Semitism permeates social media at ease. Facebook pages like We Support Jeremy Corbyn at the Labour Party as well are just avenues for anti-Semitism. Last year, TikTok deleted a collection of videos using a sickening anti-Semitic song, which gained within its first 4 days 6.5 million views. The song included the lyrics, "We're going on a trip to a place called Auschwitz. It's shower time." It's utterly disgraceful. Aston Villa had a happy Passover message, was hijacked by hundreds, if not thousands of Muslims around the world promoting hatred. My question on this, and I'll pose it a bit further on as well, to carry on a bit, is can social media be made to, or is it even impossible to restrict certain posts territory by territory? And obviously the news about JFS at the moment and the position there, where unfortunately it's believed that 3 pupils in the last 4 years have taken their own lives, and how much of this is down to social media. And can more be done to police social media? If so, and how? And will such action cause these sites to go underground and consequently make it harder to police? They have come up with the online harms bill, where they had a white paper in April 19. There was a government response in December 20. There's a draft online harms bill, which is now known as the Online Safety Bill, which was in May of this year. I've scoured through 145 pages of it, and I'm quite certain that when if ever it becomes an act of parliament, by which time social media would have moved on to a different world anyway. So those are just some of my questions. How do we police social media? Is it possible, or is it just something we have to live with?
Well, social media obviously is fantastic in many ways. We can use it to stay in touch, to get out our message, but the downside of it is immense. When I was a vice president, I remember going to see Theresa May when she was Home Secretary, suggesting that the media giants needed to be regulated. And initially, the government wasn't in favour of regulation, it was in favour of self-regulation. But as time has gone on, it's become absolutely necessary for there to be regulation. People keep using the phrase of the rights of freedom of speech to think that they can say or write anything, but freedom of speech needs to be better understood, because in the UK, it does not extend to hate speech. But the problem is, when there is hate speech, what's done about it to remove the content? And as in the case of the rapper Wiley, for example, he went on this vile anti-Semitic rant for days, and he wasn't even in the UK. What are you going to be able to do? How successfully can it be policed? This is what we're all waiting to hear. But I think to make a start on it, if the responsibility is shifted to the social media giants and they have to pay hefty fines, they're not going to want to carry on doing that. They're going to have to see some impetus to actually carry out and comply with their duties. We've been to see all of the media companies, Facebook, TikTok. We've had the same points to make to all of them. We've made progress. There isn't as much material that is as offensive on Facebook. Work denying the Holocaust is no longer able to be put up there. But to be honest, it's a never-ending battle of hatred. It just doesn't stop. Every single day in my inbox are examples all over the country, and you can't work hard enough before something else is put up. But we have to challenge it all. We have to keep going. We are going to have a media committee division at the Board of Deputies looking at media bias. And don't forget, the bias against Israel from the BBC has been horrendous. I've demanded a meeting there as well. That's another ongoing problem. And it's very important what we see on the news and on the BBC, because I believe that permeates into schools. And we've all read about the horrible things that are happening to teachers and pupils in school, and there has to be responsibility. So I can't say that this is going to be a magic answer, but it's better than what we've got. But it is the new front line. It's going to be something that I think is going to be constantly having to be monitored. There's no way that we can say we can control it. We have to do better.
How useful is interfaith dialogue?
It depends who you're talking to. We don't talk to anybody in the Muslim Council of Britain or MEND. I've always believed in interfaith dialogue, and I think there will come a point where trust has to be rebuilt with the Muslim community. I think there's been a huge amount of anti-Semitism. We've all seen the figures from CST. We're all very alarmed, but I think that we do have to, as a community, try to build bridges. But interfaith dialogue has probably been put back by a decade in view of what's happened. It's really had an impact on so many people. That includes me. I was mortified looking at the convoy coming down the Finchley Road with the Palestinian flags and the voice chanting "Death to Jews, rape the daughters." That just is not easily forgotten at all, is it? I think it's difficult, but we will have to try to build bridges. But even the Nisan Asim conference, that had to be cancelled, and I think it's going to take time. But we know it's very important to do this, and ultimately we have to have those conversations, and we have to all try to build bridges for the sake of all of our communities, and look at what we've got in common, which is a lot.
Absolutely. There's too much divisiveness out there, and actually we have way more in common than we have as differences. Thankfully. Could I just change the subject slightly? The Holocaust Memorial in London, where are we with that?
Yes. I gave evidence for the Holocaust Memorial in favour of the memorial. I was cross-examined on it, and I really hope that permission is given. I think it's more important than ever. I believe it should be right in front of Parliament, so that people are reminded never ever again in this world of hatred. I can't see what is more important. I think we're going to know on or about July. I'm understanding it's taking quite a bit of time, but yes, I gave evidence in favour. The Chief Rabbi did as well, and a number of communal representatives did.
Just one more question before we go to the questions, which is I've seen that last year that 25, you had 299 deputies last year, and you had 21 under 35 representatives. I think it's wonderful that so many people under 35 are coming on board. And is there a drive to bring more and more on board? Because we really do need the younger people involved, as we do in all local communities.
We've got so many young people involved now that what's going to happen in the next month or so is that we are setting up a youth council. They will elect a youth council chairman, and we will have a vote to change the constitution, which I am sure, I hope will be passed, so that the chair of the youth council can also sit at our executive. It looks like we've got a bumper number of deputies returning from the returns that are already in. They're not completely finished yet, but we found that we are having more and more young people. I've never actually seen so many. When I joined the board in 2012, it was a very, very different picture. So I am also so pleased. We also now have 46 communal organisations as well as shuls. We've currently got 12 organisations waiting to join. So I'm very pleased that there's such a huge amount of interest. So we want to make sure that people are happy to be involved and that we can really take that forwards as the voice of the community.
That's great. Phil, do you want to bring?
Yeah, I'll bring Barbara Schilling in, then Fluette, I think, had a hand up, and also we've got a question on the chat as well. So we'll start with Barbara. Barbara, you're
Hi, Barbara.
Unmuted.
Hi, Marie. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you loud and clear, Barbara.
Lovely. First of all, I want to thank you and congratulate you for everything that you are doing. When you gave your report there were some things I'd forgotten about, and there were some things I think I was unaware that you were dealing with. So I don't want you to think that I'm being totally critical, because I'm not.
No, please. I'm used to it. Don't worry. I'm here to answer.
I do. Excellent. It's by way of suggestion as well. I also was at the rally. I also have been very concerned at this outpouring of anti-Semitism that's come since the recent conflicts in Israel. And I feel very much that there has not been as much guidance, reassurance, statements from either yourselves or I've just gone and forgotten their name. Jewish Leadership Council. I'm so sorry.
Maybe you mean the JLC? I don't know.
I did mean the JLC. Thank you. I wondered, particularly with social media, I've become a bit of a social media warrior over the last month because I'm so incensed by the things that I'm reading online. I don't do Twitter. I don't do TikTok. I'm too old. I do Facebook. I wondered if your social media group had thought or are working with some of the groups that have set themselves up on Facebook, particularly to try and counter some of the hatred and lies that are being spread. I mean, it is a never-ending job and we are horribly outnumbered, but there are groups like the Jewish Community London, that's got 12,500 members. Jewish Britain's got 10,000 members. Pro-Israel Activists Unite have 12,000 members. We Believe in Israel has a similar number, and Europeans Against Anti-Semitism. Now, I appreciate that some of those are going to be this, like me, there are going to be people who are members of all 5 groups. But what I think has been missing in this latest social media conflict is somebody actually leading from the front. And if you don't mind my suggesting it to you, I would suggest that maybe liaising with some of those groups to get communal messages out, to try and use some of these volunteers. You know, there are people in each of these groups saying, come to this particular page or come to that particular page. What's on there is horrendous. And they're gathering support and enabling people. And I also wondered whether or not you are interacting with the unions. I was absolutely horrified to see the statements from both the Education Union and Equity encouraging their members to go on the pro-Palestinian rallies, and without any apparent concept of of the effect that has on Jewish people or Jewish teachers or Jewish pupils in schools. And I find that really frightening, particularly the Education Union. I'm probably very naive that I didn't realize just how anti-Semitic they are, that they don't even seem to understand that this is anti-Semitism. And I've just wondered if you have any interaction with them. And the last one, and then I'll leave someone else to talk to you, is with the Labour, she's not Labour, I think she was Liberal Democrat, although they're nearly as bad. The Luton MP went to a rally that was being held in Luton Park. If not this weekend just gone, it was the weekend before that. And I know that a lot of people wrote to her and expressed their concern that she was on the platform with them, and she reassured everybody that she wouldn't stand for anti-Semitism and that it would be a peaceful rally. There is video of her singing, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And again, she seems to have no concept of what that actually means. And sorry, I know that's loads and loads of things I've chucked at you, but
Thank
those
you,
are just my
Barbara.
current thoughts.
We'll take it from Marie. We'll take it to you now.
I'll just respond. Yeah, on some of those, they're all very valid. I think, David, they are very valid points to make. In relation to unions, that is a big piece of work that the Board of Deputies is absolutely addressing. For example, Community Union had their annual general conference about 2 weeks ago, and I spoke there. You were referring, Barbara, to the disgraceful conduct of the NEU union. I just want you to know that I certainly have written to them making complaint. And in fact, just this afternoon, they've written back to me agreeing to have a meeting. So I will be absolutely forcefully telling them what I think, and that is very important, that we absolutely take on the unions. Also, I did take up, of course, the situation with equity, and would not dream of not doing that. So it's a major piece of work, tackling the union, and also building relations and making it clear what is not acceptable, because we are going to take it all. Every single day, we receive information about a huge number of social media posts. Behind the scenes, we deal with lots of them. We write, we investigate, we deal with lots of them publicly as well. This is a constant piece of work. These Facebook groups that you're talking about, I don't want to go into some of them because I don't think that would be appropriate. Many of them, of course, are very good and they contain thousands of people's views, but some of those views are also controversial. So it can be a mixed bag. But I want to say we are not short of information, posts, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, wherever it is, of anti-Semitic incidents and allegations. They pour into the board, all the communal organisations. We all work, we all liaise behind the scenes because we have to. We're all facing these issues together. At the board, we do have an army of volunteers. Our deputies are very, very good. They're amazing. And we are going to make sure this triennium, we are going to be using our deputies in a committee to take on even more of these posts. And we have to, of course, investigate and sift. You've referred to the incident in Luton. It's appalling. There's so many appalling incidents. We take them up, we deal with them. It's never ending. At the board, we have never been busier. And I want to reassure you that we are going to do all of those things. We are absolutely going to stand up for Jews, and we will make sure that anti-Semitism is challenged, especially online, which is definitely the front line. We do have relations with so many people. As I say, some of these Facebook groups also have got content, some of which can be controversial. It's also got lots of people's views, and I can assure you the board is not short of people's views, but we will go on the evidence always. But we will be very happy for anyone to report anything to us. That happens every day, and we're going to carry on making sure that we take this up. We're not going to let it pass.
Yes, and it doesn't hold us necessarily in a good light when there is a plethora of misinformation coming out from there, including the story that came out from the Royal Free Hospital.
Yes, exactly.
Which doesn't help us, and people, no. I don't know what the purpose to gain sympathy doesn't really help in the long run because it works against us.
No, and we do have to investigate that story from the Royal Free. We had so many reports that was fake. Why somebody would do that? So we don't just take it at face value. We do investigate. We have to, because hysteria can be whipped up. And you're so right. That was so damaging to our community. Whoever did that, why they did it, I've got no idea.
Yeah. Phil, is there anybody else?
Yeah, I'll bring David Oliver in. Well, so put a hand down. I did send her a message just to check if she still wants to ask a question. So I'll go with David next.
Okay.
Hello, David.
As far as I know, the board is a very pro-Zionist Israeli organisation, But I also understand there are quite a few anti-Zionist members, including an anti-Zionist group, who I think we all know. If it's true, isn't that very detrimental to Israel? And doesn't that pull you down when you're pulling in one direction, and there are other people, if it's true, pulling in the other direction, and then you can't make decisions?
Well, I think you'll have a lot of people that will have heard you saying that they're anti-Zionists at the Board of Deputy that will really take issue with that, because I presume that you're referring to Yachad. Yeah. They certainly do not consider themselves to be anti-Zionist, but they have their views. The board is a democratic representative body. We represent the full diversity and spectrum of opinion. And some years ago, Yachad applied to join the Board of Deputies, and they were voted in as members, and they're entitled to have their views. They represent a sizable view of the community. You or I might not agree with that. And there is a very, very divisive views on Israel, and I have to recognise those different points of view. And what's important to me is that we can have discussions about differences in a civilised and tolerant way, rather than an abuse, which has happened in the past. And last summer, we had a key Israel debate at the Board of Deputies, and we had a vote, and the two-state policy was confirmed as board policy. But I regularly get asked every week, why Yachad in the board, get rid of Yachad, but they've got every right to be there. They will advocate their position. There was a petition during the conflict of about 800 or 1,000 people, which is a lot. And I've responded to it from the position that I believe that most of the community sits, but they have a right to be there. But they will not accept that they are anti-Zionist. They may say they have different views, but they absolutely come at it from, in their view, a Zionist manner. They do certainly. I don't think it's fair to describe them as anti-Zionist, even if you don't like their points of view. But there will be big disagreement about that, because a lot of people in the Board of Deputies certainly do not agree with their views.
When Yachad came in, it was about 3 years ago, wasn't it? No,
it was just, I think, when I joined the board. It must have been about, I think I remember it almost at my first meeting. I think must have been like 2012 or something, quite a while ago. It's a long time ago now.
Yeah, it was, but then
it's not in my time.
But they must have been voted in, as you said, which presumably it gives the board. I mean, you said there's about 300 odd people on the board. I don't know what percentage Yachad is, and it's quite a lot. But there must have been a lot of people, a big percentage, that actually agreed with Yachad to come in. Otherwise, I wouldn't have voted for that.
It's not a question of agreement.
Sorry?
I have to say, it's not a question of agreeing with them. It's a question of admitting them to the board. It doesn't mean that they agree or not, but they have a democratic right to be there and to express their views. And that was the vote of the deputies at the time. And as I say, the board represents the full diversity and spectrum of opinion.
Yeah.
You have to have people on. You can't have everybody agreeing. You have to have conflicting views, because otherwise you don't have thoughtful discussion and opinion.
It's like the opposition with the government.
But you know, David, there's no chance of Jews all agreeing. You know, we all know 2 Jews, 10 opinions. Everyone's a prime minister.
Yeah.
Flora will know that. I can see Flora there with her hand up.
So
can I just sort of just continue on that, because it does worry me and it does upset me. And if there must be a reasonable percentage that do agree with Yachad, and doesn't that affect your what you need to do? Because you at the beginning you were telling us all the fantastic things that the board are doing, which they are. There's no question about that. But don't they then pull things back when it comes to Israel?
I have a democratic mandate. People knew my position on Israel when I was elected, and I've recently been re-elected on my mandate. It is a democratic organisation, and if it came to a vote, if motions are put forward, there will be a motion. But I've been elected on my Israel position, and I am a passionate Zionist. I am otherwise a centrist. A very centrist president. I think you have to be a centrist president, but I have a great passion for Israel. I've been going to Israel since 1969. My grandparents made Aliyah. My brother lives in Israel today with his family. My nephew's in the IDF. So I have a great passion for Israel, but I can deal and accept that other Jews have different opinions within the Board of Deputies, but we need to be able to talk about those opinions. They're not my opinions, but we must talk about it. And we have to accept that Jews do have different opinions. But it's not just about Israel, but Israel does create very, very heated passions. I will accept, I will accept that. But they were democratically elected, and they're entitled to represent their views. And they are quite a sizable number of the board, but that's not my mandate. My mandate and what I believe in Israel is quite clear, and that's the basis upon which I was elected initially as president. And I've always been consistent in how I advocate for Israel.
Can I just ask you one last question on that note?
You'll have to ask David.
It depends what the question is.
We got a mute button.
Don't worry, it's not embarrassing. No, but on that basis, out of 300 people, what is the percentage, or what is the amount of I know I shouldn't say anti-Zionist, but that's what
you shouldn't actually, because that's not going to help the dialogue. That won't help the dialogue. We will have our return of deputies quite shortly, but you can't force people to say what their views are or what's in their heart. But I would say quite a lot of Jews that perhaps are younger will have what you call challenging views. But it's not just younger Jews. There are a sizable number. There's no question of it. But my mandate and my advocacy for Israel has always been clear. I've never, ever, whatever anyone else says about me, I'm an absolute trooper when it comes to Israel. We're absolute Zionists. I've never, ever changed my view. I was very proud to be at the rally. I will stand up for Israel, but I'm big enough also to understand that people have different views. We need to talk about it. And this year at the Board of Deputies, for the first time, I've introduced into the Communities Division Israel education for deputies so that we can learn a lot more about Israel. And we're also going to have, it was in my mandate, a Board of Deputies mission to Israel. And our current interim CEO is Michael Weger, who was the chair for many years of the UJIA. And that appointment reflects, in my view, the importance of Israel to the community and wanting to make sure that we have many more discussions on Israel in a very positive light and more education. So Israel is going to be a very big focus of our work in the next few years. So I can't tell you people are going to be removed, but what's the point of removing people? They're still going to have those views. It's much better for us all to talk. And we've got to remain together as Jews. We need to be united. We're in really difficult, challenging time. There's room for Jews with all views. But as for my views, you know what they are on Israel, and they're not going to be changing anytime soon.
Thank you. What, just before we move on to Flora, if you could just say the board's position together with CST and the police over the forthcoming rally, coming down the motorway from Bradford and wherever they make collections on the way. When we had the last rally and just before the Israel rally, we've had a series of meetings with the Metropolitan Police. And the last time we discussed this, we also discussed if there was a rally, about whether the rally could be rerouted. Some of those vehicles probably aren't taxed, etc. So those discussions are going on now
behind the scenes, because we don't want those rallies obviously coming in, terrorising Jewish areas. But there isn't a way to stop a rally coming down, if that's what anyone thinks, to actually stop it. Might be able to delay it, hold it up, reroute it, all of those things. But I find it very intimidating. I'm sure that lots of people do, not just Jews. I think people don't want to see this sort of thing.
Marie, is it something, because obviously last time the police acted very much at the 11th hour with the rally, even though it had been publicised, and this one's been publicised far more. The police said that they will proactively monitor it.
They were proactive last time. They held a big meeting with all of the community. Look, there were some instances that I was very alarmed at, including the behaviour of somebody in the police force who said things that were inappropriate. But they were very good. They took it seriously. They listened to all of us. They talked it through. I know, and they gave us reports during the day. I know they will be taking this seriously now. We are following up on it, and we will do all that we can to make sure that people are not intimidated where they live, because that was a disgrace. And I'm sorry, Michael, of course, was the CEO, Michael Weger, I said before, of the UJA, not the chair, for any BD people that picked that up, and apologies there. But yes, the police are looking at this. They have been very good.
The rally, I believe they're starting at 1 o'clock in Bradford, which is thankful that they're not starting earlier, where everybody will be in Shaw, and there'll be many more Jews on the streets in London. So at least that would have eased up slightly, and hopefully it's all dealt with in the right way. But the person who was trying to promote a drive past of the mosque in St John's Wood, or Regent's Park Mosque, waving Israeli flags and hooting, it's just unproductive and causes more problem. And to do a like for like doesn't do anything for us.
I couldn't agree with you more, David. Absolutely. We know who the person is. He has in his heart, he's advocating for Israel, but I have to say I agree with you. That doesn't do us any favours.
Thank you. Do you want to bring Flora in?
Yeah, I'll bring Flora in. Flora, your line's unmuted if you...
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I understand David Oliver's concerns, and I want to say, I mean, this week's Sidra of all Sidras is all to do with arguments, and Jewish people, Marie's right. She didn't actually say what I'm going to say, but arguments are very healthy. Arguments are very healthy. We have to have arguments that dissension is healthy. And whilst I understand, Maria, and I know you know this, it's not just David, there are many people who are very concerned about various organisations. I'm not going to name them. We've already named them. They may have the best of intentions, but, it's all very nice that it's an argument, but it's got to be l'shem shamayim. It's got to be for a good sake. It's got to be for the sake of Israel. I know you say you're centrist. I may be more to the right, and I respect you. I think you've been amazing. But I think it's what David and other people are trying to say is that we have to be a bit more. You can't stop people having their opinions, and it's better they're with us in the fold, and they're very well intentioned, I'm sure. I've got to be very careful with my choice of words. What I say to them individually is something.
You'll be hearing from them, yes.
Yeah, well, I don't mind if I hear from them, because Miriam, I'm the one who stands up and says sometimes the things they say are outrageous.
Well, Flora, you and I have literally been some in the past, some of the only people at the Al-Quds rally. I don't think you should misrepresent me in some ways. I am a centrist person, but I'm well known in relation to matters of Israel to be.
Of course, and I apologise if you, Marie, I apologise if you misunderstood me, because I'm saying it in very good faith. And I said it's amazing because you do care about Israel, but there is, and you do. So I think you misunderstood me. So I will apologise if you misunderstood me.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
No doubt about it. We've always been there. We've sometimes stood together, the lone voices.
We have.
No doubt about it. But what I'm saying, David Oliver, and it's not only David Oliver, there are quite a few people who feel quite strongly about Yachad. They have approached me and said, you know, you're on the board. But I want to assure everybody, and Marie will agree with this, we've got a very strong pro-Israel lobby, if I can put it that way, you know, a very, very strong. Have we not, Marie, also on the board? It's not just Yachad.
I have a mandate for my advocacy for Israel. I've been elected twice, and as Flora said, I am a passionate advocate for Israel. My position has been absolutely consistent and clear, but we've still got to allow respect and to acknowledge there is a diversity of views. And I think we're all grown up enough to be able to have those discussions in a civilized way. And I think we need to have those discussions. And it's hard for some people to accept that people have different views, but we can deal with that. But how the community is represented, as I say, I believe I've got a democratic mandate to present a very passionate view and a Zionist advocacy for Israel. That's my mandate, and I've never changed from that and never will. My own family lived there. My grandparents made Aliyah. I've been going to Israel since 1969. I have an absolute love for Israel. I will go on Aliyah myself. I'm not going to change. So while I'm leading the board, I'm a passionate advocate, and there are many, many people that are in the same place as me. But people are entitled to have a different opinion, and we need to give them the respect of listening.
I agree. If we dismiss everybody who has a difference of opinion, we'd never have stability. And there we speak for the government in Israel. But that's something else. Just changing the subject very, very much. There was something I noticed in the accounts of the Board of Deputies, and you may not know the answers for this, but they have an expense called hidden treasures.
Yes.
What is that?
Well, we've been doing, you haven't been listening to all our podcasts over the pandemic. Dawn Waterman's done this amazing series. We've got a fantastic archiving project that we've been doing. We've been looking at different aspects of different communities, for example, and that's what Hidden Treasures is. We've been going to various shores. We've had lots of interesting discussions, meetings. And basically, it's trying to preserve the heritage, our community, all of our communities, which are hidden treasures. It's a great series. Right. And if you've got hidden treasures in your shul that you want to be put in the Board of Deputies archives, and you want there to be a programme about it, that's what should happen. And we'd be delighted to do that. It's a fantastic project.
The hidden treasures in our shul are the very elderly.
Very well hidden, David, our treasures.
Back to you, Phil.
Yeah, so we've got a question from Florette, and then I'll go to Jerry, and then back to Flora. And I'm not sure if David's still got his hand up from before, if it's a new question. Not sure that.
Come on, guys, you've done with Yachad. You'll have to come up with some other questions.
Right. Florette, you should be able to unmute yourself. There we go.
Unmuted. Right. Hi.
Hi, Florette.
Hi, Marie. Wonderful to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's interesting. It's lovely to be mentioned in this patch. It's very, very nice. But I'm honored to work with you for many years of the projects that we've done together. And it's my honor to work with you. Congratulations for being re-elected. Okay.
Thank you.
What I'd like to say to you is, I don't know how many people are up at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. I am quite often, I'm afraid.
And I'm afraid I'm not, but okay. I'm sorry that you... Yeah.
My radio is always on, usually on BBC Radio 4. And I cannot, you say that social media, yes, social media is the bane of our life at the moment, work for anti-Semitism and for Israel. You would actually think at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning that Israel was the only country in the whole world, in the whole world. And whenever they make any comments also, they also say, you know, when they call and they say, in this year, in 1925, in this year, in 20, you know, in all the previous years, on this date, such and such happened. 99% of the time, there's something to do with Israel, always. The other day, it was Ariel Sharon went into...
You mean there's an obsession with Israel? Yes, yes.
Total obsession. So what I'd like to do is to ask you, please, two things. What exactly are we doing to make them answer for what they're doing? They really are anti-Israel in every way. And
well, I have a standing meeting with part of the BBC, and in that meeting last week, I've made it clear that the media bias against Israel is unacceptable, and I've also written to the head of their communications demanding a meeting. So I've started the demand, and I'm going to carry on demanding, because I think it has to be tackled, because people watch television and that has an impact in schools. We've seen what's been going on there. The BBC, of course, is funded by taxpayers' money, so they shouldn't be spouting bias. We are going to actively collect more and more evidence. We've asked any deputies if they have any evidence, any clips, to send it all to us. We're going to make that also a big part of our work, to try and look at the media bias. And before anyone says to me, what is media bias towards Israel? Because people will have different views, of course.
Yeah.
But in the conflict, I mean, blatant reporting which doesn't reflect that Israel is being attacked by Hamas terrorists, throwing over some 4,000 rockets. I mean, that is absolutely blatant. I agree. The obsession with Israel is very difficult to understand. Why? I accept that it's there. We all do, but we're not going to be quiet about it. And I've already demanded some meetings, so I hope I get them. If not, I'll start demanding even louder till we get them.
Jeremy Bound, first of all, the most.
Well, yes, he's the most talked about journalist that I get written to. Yes, the single most. Yes, I do.
I'm glad that you're working on it, and that makes me feel better. But I also want to ask you about the police and the cars and the obscenities that were mounted in those cars. The police can see every single car through cameras, and they can see every single number plate that have gone in any road anywhere. Why, oh why, oh why have they only arrested 4 people? Why didn't they stop it before it came to London? What's the answer for that? What did they say?
But firstly, about you can't just stop a rally, because that is, it counts as a car rally. I'm told that's not illegal. They're looking this time, seeing, for example, if there can be a change of route, etc. People that break the law, I agree, should be prosecuted. And I've asked the board team that I want a meeting with the CPS. I want to know why there are more prosecutions, especially when there is this evidence of race hate, and it's just not good enough. I know they probably are trying to balance policing with protecting the community, but that sort of hatred isn't good enough. There were certainly some arrests made, but what you're saying is there aren't enough, and that also has to be worked through. I agree with you. There aren't enough.
They have to be.
Yeah, and I said the same at the time with the rapper Wiley. I said he should be prosecuted as well. Anybody that spouts race hate should be prosecuted.
Also,
I think there's...
in Scotland it's not much better, because I went to a peace rally in Scotland, and the Palestinian flags were hanging from lampposts in the middle of a main dual carriageway. Now, don't tell me nobody could see that.
Scotland. It's very difficult in Scotland, and I know, because it's been publicised, that the community have written to Nicola Sturgeon, and I know that she in the past has always refused to see the Israeli ambassador. That isn't good enough, and they face a lot of difficult BDS issues up in Scotland. And the Board of Deputies is providing absolute support to the Scottish community. And we, in the next triennium, are going to be supporting financially SCOGEC, and they're going to be recruiting their own chief executive to help face those challenges. I think some others might want to ask some questions. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I do. Actually, part of there was a reason why only 4 people were arrested, so the police claimed, and that was they were spouting forth hatred. The other people were merely driving, and the dozens or so driving or walking by with Palestinian flags, though felt intimidating, they felt weren't arrestable offences.
Well, there's some videos that have been surfacing social media of some horrible things that were said at the back end of the Israel rally, actually. So I think they might have been referencing that. But generally, we want to know why there aren't more prosecutions, and I think that's an important point.
Yeah, there was also the person who posted again on one of the pro-Jewish sites, I can't remember which one it was, stating that the policeman had overheard somebody walking down the street saying, "We want the blood of the Jews," and that policeman ignoring that and then saying, "All the police are the same." Well, of course, isn't that what we keep objecting to, the fact if somebody doesn't like one Jewish person to actually write off the entire religion? So sweeping generalizations.
Yeah, that also means that's also looking at the police as well. That's a whole different ball game, looking at whether some people should even be in the police force and what are they going to do about that people. Yeah. That's a whole other concern. I agree.
Sorry, do you want to bring in Jerry?
Yeah, I'll bring Jerry in, and then we'll go to David. Jerry, you should be able to unmute.
Evening, and thank you again for allowing me to gate crash your wonderful Edgeware series. I attended last night the excellent meeting Spencer Nathan put on, and you really have a treasure trove of people in your community. Because you need to have questions, I'm going to put, as parliamentarians do, an interrogative question right at the beginning. Are you aware? And then just make my few comments very briefly. Are you aware? I want to pay a special tribute to Norma Don, who wasn't re-elected. As many of you will know in your community, she had a very serious car accident. She has been a treasure at the Board of Deputies. She has served quietly but very effectively on the Community Issues Division, including when I was in charge of it for many years. And it's a great shame that she's no longer on the board. You have good new deputies, and of course, Danny Handler returning. But we are going to be looking, I hope, at some way of involving former deputies to make sure that they can play a role, because they also have a lot to offer. So I want to make that very clear. I also include congratulations to Flora, who she and I may not agree on many things, but she is such a vibrant part of the board, one of the few characters we have, and long may she continue in her tremendous efforts and keeping us all on our toes. Can I just come to the couple of points I wanted to make? You, Chair, made the valid point about the reasons why there were so few arrests. And the problem is evidence. And the problem is, unless you've got clear evidence that can stand up in court, it's no use arresting people, letting them be freed 5 minutes later for the lack of evidence. They're going to just carry on doing whatever they want. We have to educate our community on how to take videos on such occasions when there is such an incident, when we can record the sounds and the voices which are so abusive to us. And that's something which is very, very urgently needed, because without that evidence to give to the police and the prosecuting authorities, we can't take things further. You've raised the issue of the BBC, and I have been working alongside the BBC for the best part of my journalistic life. We need to educate our community on how to complain to the BBC. It's all well and good saying you've heard a broadcast in the middle of the night, but Jews are super sensitive. Every time they hear the word Israel, they think it's antagonistic or incorrect. Yes, there are people who abuse, journalists who abuse their positions, talking about Israel and criticizing Israel, but we must be far more balanced in how we deal with it. When I was a vice president, I used to preach the 3 C's before you go to the BBC. First of all, be concise, no rambling complaints. B, you've got to consult with those in the community who know what's going on. And that's very important to make sure there's a balance in a programme or a balance over a series of programmes. And C, the most important of the lot, you've got to be 100% correct about what you complain about. These things are not said to our community. We need to educate our community on how to complain properly. My final point is this. I've always been very, very concerned that we as a community over dramatize some of the reactions that we've seen on the streets. Yes, we've had the highest rate of anti-Semitism for a very, very long time, but we need to drill into the people that we need to speak to. And I give Marie credit for doing this very, very persuasively in her first period of office. We need to drill into those people the effects of the policies, sometimes in Israel, which get triggering actions and reactions here. It's a difficult thing to say, but sometimes people get so fired up by what they've seen on the BBC, such as the deaths of many Palestinians and things like that. We need to have education in our community on how to deal with complaints in that area. And I hope, Marie, that you've got some plans to deal with this issue, because this is where we need to start, and then we'll be far more effective. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry.
I'll just take a few of those points because I think Jerry set out his what he had to say well. And yes, Norma has been a huge treasure at the board, and I saluted Norma at our leaving event that we had during the week. And I also want to say, as well as your current deputies elected, Fleurette and Renee, have also been real troopers. All of you, we've been blessed. And I have asked our senior vice president, as was Sheila Giewald, if she would set up a deputies alumni so that we can make sure that we stay in touch with deputies, because once you're a deputy, it's like family. And we want to make sure that we continue to stay in touch. We really welcome that. So that will happen. So watch this space. We know that Sheila will proceed to do that, but I've asked her to do that. Yes, of course, you need evidence for arrests. Sometimes I think, though, there is a reluctance to arrest people. There is evidence on certain videos that I've seen about what happened at the back end of the Israel rally. Should there have been arrests? I think it's a mixture of also wanting to understand the bar for prosecution. I think that we do have to have a meeting with the CPS. I think we do need to be more forceful, that they need to charge people and make sure that the message goes out that race hate is absolutely a criminal matter. It's not going to be tolerated, and freedom of speech does not extend to race hate. I think that there has to be a clear policy on that. And of course, evidence is needed. And it's always much easier, of course, to prosecute when there is that evidence. It's very difficult if you're in a certain situation and people do their best, but we do have quite a bit of evidence that's given to us in video form. People make lots of complaints already to the BBC. I'm not sure the number of complaints makes a difference, but I think people should complain. We've got a new internet at the Board of Deputies, and we've got an advocacy section, and it's going to be much easier for people to get template letters to make complaints and things like that going forwards, and to find out who's your local MP, who's your councillor, so they can make those complaints. The Board of Deputies, we make complaints when we feel it's serious. If we made them every single day, people wouldn't take us as seriously. And everything we do, we investigate, we make sure that we take the strongest points as well, because that's something that's very important. But absolutely, online and media bias are key aspects of the work that is going to be carried out by the Board of Deputies going forwards. That is absolutely essential. And can I please say again, we absolutely need and value your £30 communal contribution, because we need also to have the money for resources to put in to make sure that we've got the right staff, because if it keeps going at such an alarming rate, it's unfortunately a full-time job, but we're very fortunate. We've got also an army of volunteers, and we've got to make sure that people are managed, and we are going to make sure that we absolutely make that a key part of our work going forwards.
Can I just bring in about football? At the moment, Black Lives Matter. Is there a move to actually instill on these people that actually all lives matter, and that racism towards everybody apart from black people is important?
We don't support the movement Black Lives Matter. That doesn't detract, however, from making sure that how people that are black or Jews of colour are treated is absolutely essential. We don't say all lives matter, because that I don't want to trivialise how badly black Jews have been treated. And we've recently had our Commission of Inclusivity for Black Jews and Jews of colour by the amazing Stephen Bush, which has got 119 recommendations. But we can't support the Black Matter movement. I think we understand there's a lot of anti-Semitism within that movement, but we do support how black people are treated equally, and that's a very important message.
Yeah, I just meant that rather than just taking the knee and imposing on everybody the belief that Black Lives Matter, actually the whole movement should be towards what they say is kick racism out of football. But actually their focus is on the Black lives because of the movement itself.
There shouldn't be racism in any sport or any anti-Semitism, absolutely. But I think the terminology in all these cases is quite important, and people place a lot of store by how that is expressed. But we want all racism, all anti-Semitism kicked out of football and sport, absolutely. And we mustn't forget that the online reach for a lot of these sports clubs is absolutely huge. So that's another reason why we need to make sure that racism and anti-Semitism is dealt with on the football pitch. The influence is huge.
Phil, can I pass back to you?
Yeah, so we've got David, Flora, who got second questions. I've got Keith, who's got a first question. So
go to Keith then.
I'll go with Keith first, but then I will come back to David and Flora if we just keep all the questions brief, and then we can get as many in as possible. That will be great. So yep. Keith, your line should be available.
It was more about David's point about all lives matter. While that's true, if you remember quite how annoyed we got when Jeremy Corbyn said we condemn anti-Semitism and all other forms of racism. The
that's
point
right.
is when a community is hurting because of something that's happening, you say, I support them. If you go to a shiver, you don't say, oh, there's someone down the road just died, actually. You're supporting the person who's there in front of you. The black community was hurting. The Jewish community is hurting now. Yeah. And
actually, the Jewish community has been hurting for years. We're not immune to it.
I agree with Keith. I think that was very well put, Keith. Very good.
Okay. I don't know if Keith, I can't hear Keith. I don't know if he's muted.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're a very interested community. You're not short of questions. That's good.
I'm going to say tonight's been quiet, Marie.
We are aware you have a meeting tomorrow morning, though, so we won't keep you.
So what I'll do, I'm going to bring in Flora and then David Oliver. And then, I don't know
I think I can see Barry and Anne shine. They haven't got a question there. They've been, yes, no. Can I say they've done amazing work for the board as well. Have to give them treasure, and United Synagogue. So yes, I can see the wave.
I guess I hope there's lots of people waving. Flora, you are unmuted.
Yes. Thank you. No, it wasn't. I was in mid speech with Marie, and I was cut off. But it doesn't matter. That I wanted to make a point, and I'm going to make it into a question that Marie has just now substantiated how vital it is that we all pay the levy. And I know that when I was a representative for United Synagogue for Edgware, I'm sorry, which I'm now British Emerald now, I used to make this point. I'm asking Marie and David, I mean, it's more David or Phil or whoever, David Oliver, the two Davids who can answer. I remember that it was hard work getting our community, I have to say it in a very nice way, to pay their levy. Is it something that's confidential? But are we now improving on the percentage of people who are giving the levies? Because this is what is so crucial. The work the board, what I'm saying, the work the board does is so crucial. Marie has demonstrated it. We really need every penny, and we need every single person to put their hands in their pocket, because what we're doing it, well, not we, you are doing it for me, I'm putting it down. I appreciate that, and that's why it's one of the first things I pay. I'm just worried, and I'm interested, and you've got a lot of clout, and you've got clout when you have meetings with other United Synagogues. There are council members there. I think it's urgent that people know this. We're like Cinderella, people don't realise the work that goes into that board, and Marie has demonstrated, as I said before. That was the point I wanted to make, and my question is, are we doing our own bit in our shul? I'm talking to myself as well.
Look, your shul's a very, very good contributor, and you can see by the amount of deputies that are sent back. And I want to welcome, I can see Spencer Nathan, who I know will have been at the regional meeting. So thank you, Spencer. You're also there. And thank you for your work. We just need every penny. I'm a communal volunteer. Lots of us are volunteers, but we do rely on that contribution. People expect the board to be there when it matters. The amount of things and the work that we have to do is absolutely huge. It's never ending. So all I can say is to absolutely beg you to please pay your communal contribution. It's really, really good value, £30 a year. If anyone wants to give us any more, we of course be delighted, but we are reliant on it. And Florette's absolutely right to point this out, and thank you. But you are a good community, a very valued community. I wish everybody was as good at wanting to ask for their communal levy as well. Thank you.
Okay, I'll bring in Mr. Oliver.
Hi again. I want to say hello to Jerry Lewis. We go back, is it 65 years, Jerry? But he looks
I didn't know that, David. Oh, right, okay.
He looks a lot older than me, though, doesn't he?
Well, I have to ask you, David, how he was as a young man. I'm sure you've got some stories for me.
He was awful when he was 5, and then he got worse.
Well, Jerry probably didn't hear that your grandson and my daughter have been in the same school, so our families also know each other.
Exactly. We're only ever one way, in Jewish geography, you're only one person away from everybody, aren't we? Really?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's finalising this, isn't it? A few years ago, the Haredi movement will be, in about 9 or 10 years, the Haredi movement will be over 52% in the UK. Of 300 members, as far as I know, and I think it's true, you've only got one Haredi member. I know the majority of Haredim shuls knocked out some years ago when I think they were invited, they were coming in and so on, and so whatever, and they rejected I think they rejected the board. I don't know whether they've been asked again or they've been asked or whatever. And I must be honest, I mean, the last year has changed my mind about the Haredim, because they've done a lot of naughty things that they shouldn't be doing. However, I do believe that we spoke about the people on the left, and I think that we shouldn't we balance it up with a lot of people on the right? I mean, to have one Haredi there seems a bit unbalanced.
Well, first of all, the Haredim left in about 1970 en masse when women, Jerry's nodding his head, and reform communities came in. So it's too simplistic to say, are you coming back? The Haredi representative, I think we're going to be doubling it. There is another one coming. Is from the Ashur, that is United Synagogue. But can I say the Haredim don't need to sit on the Board of Deputies because we work together these days throughout. I've dealt with the Haredi community from my time as a vice president, when I've dealt with the coroner Mary Hassel, who introduced the cab rank rule, this discriminatory rule that prevented speedy burial. I deal with parts of the Satmar community, all different types of Haredi community. And throughout the pandemic, we have been attending meetings with members of the Haredi community, with government, also the mayor of Hackney, and our dealings with government and the Haredi community are absolutely there. And we are there for the community. And in 2030, David's right, one baby in every two born will be Haredi. Even if the Haredi community said, let's come back, what would the board do? There would be like 194 deputies, which would then be the majority of the board. They don't want to come back. They don't need to come back. We work very well together. There's been some innovative thinking. Rabbi Spitzer, who is a headmaster, suggested that the Haredi community could outsource their representation to the board. We already do a lot of work in the board. You might not think about it, but Mila UK involves the Haredi community. The board is the secretariat. We run Mila UK, so we do actually work with them already. So the relationship is extremely close. We are there for all Jews. That's especially also the Haredi. And they did do things that there was concern throughout the summer. But I want to say it was also very important that they are not stigmatized unfairly as a community. I'm also working very hard at the moment to help with this very, very tragic case of the baby Flixler. Very, very difficult situation, doing my best to help the community, but we are absolutely there for the Haredi community. So they know that as well. And it was a very tragic moment, particularly when Rabbi Pinter died early on in the pandemic. He'd always been very supportive to me, but we've got a lot of deep links these days. It's changed from not having any connection. We all appear on government meetings now. We've had Zoom, and that's, I think, a very, very positive sign. So I don't think they're going to be coming back, but they don't need to for us to work together. We may change in the future, but women have come to stay at the Board of Deputies, and so have progressive communities.
Thank you.
That's all right. It's this.
Thank you. I think we have we've kept you an hour and a half, and thank you for that.
David, time has gone by so quickly. You're such a vibrant community. You're a pleasure. You should all be deputies.
They should all be chairman. I would just like to say, Marie, thank you so much for being with us this evening. I wish you continued success as president. I wish you a wonderful 3 years, and obviously thereafter, whatever your choice is, I'm sure you will continue with the board. You do a fantastic job, and we value your presence there.
Thank you. I'm a deputy for life, so I
there you
certainly
are.
Yes, that's one of the benefits of being a president.
I would also like to thank everybody else for being here this evening and joining us. I would just like to say that next Wednesday evening, we have Hila Oz with us. She will be talking about being proud to be Jewish. She is a recent UCLA graduate who's known for making content about Judaism, anti-Semitism, and Israel. She moved to Israel last August and has been learning at seminary since. She now works as a content creator and educator, and is passionate about empowering Jews to be proud of their Judaism, as we all are. Please do join us next week. And as I say, thank you all for being here this evening, and particularly thank you, Marie. And I wish you a good rest of the evening. Enjoy the weather. Who knows how long it will last. And as I say, I wish you continued success as president, and I wish continued success for the Board of Deputies as well.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you in person. And when things open up, I hope you'll invite me again, because I so enjoyed having the opportunity to see you. Thank you.
With pleasure. Who knows, we could be open to have people have food even in the show. We look forward to that and welcoming you back, because I think you were with us 3 years ago, something like that.
I was. Time has flown. Thank you.
It was just when you came in as president the last time. So there we are. Take care, be well, and thank you, everybody. I will now pass over to Phil.
Thanks, David. Thank you very much, Marie.